Thanks for joining us again on Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, and I'm joined again by Dr. Naila Ansari-Catilo, professor at Buff State University, choreographer, podcaster, performing artist. The list goes on. Ashleigh Chrisena Ricci, a performer and host of Buffalo Toronto Public Media's digital series, Let's Go. And Pat Kelly, filmmaker and director of content creation at Buffalo Toronto Public Media. We have a very busy group of people and an all-star cast here today. So I'm excited to get into the conversations. And, thank you, Pat, for filling in because you have a lot of responsibilities here. Yuki Numata-Resnick was supposed to be one of our guests today. She's a violinist. She's a nonprofit leader, but also a parent. And as we know, it's this time of year. One of her children was sick today, so we'll have her on a future episode. Actually, one of the first things we are going to start talking about, because it is Women's History Month and we are celebrating women. We celebrate women all year long, but this month we're highlighting them. One of the first things we're talking about today is motherhood and womanhood. And Pat, you're going to weigh in on that as being raised by women, right? So what do you think motherhood looks like today?
Oh, craziness, chaos. With a lot of love, but chaos.
Yeah.
And I think it's unapologetic. I think motherhood looked very different even just a decade ago, where this idea of like what a mother should be and how you have to manage everything. I think there's been a shift where folks are like, I don't have to act like I'm the perfect mom and I'm like slightly a little bit of a mess and like trying to hold it together. And I think that's totally okay.
Yeah.
And I think families look very different now. Like I have bonus boys. And so, it's not the kind of typical families that people are used to, and everyone I think is coming back to the village, which I appreciate. Everybody's all hands on deck.
Because it is necessary. And how old is your son?
Oh, I have 3.
Yes.
So I have a 10, a 9, and soon to be 7-year-old boy on March.
You are in it.
Yeah, 27th. So
wow.
A lot of driving right now?
A lot of driving, a lot of feelings, a lot of Avengers, a lot of Roblox, Fortnite.
Yeah.
What else is in there? Oh, YouTube Kids.
Sure.
Do they know all the Fortnite dances?
Listen, and the V-Bucks, Fortnite dances, V-Bucks, Snoop Dogg's on Fortnite. I don't know if y'all know that. That's a thing now. That happens. Yeah, he's a character.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
So now Noah's like currently saying Uncle Snoop.
That's great.
Because of Fortnite. So, yeah. So
cool.
It's a crazy world.
Can I ask you a question? Mm-hmm. Do your kids call you bruh?
They.
I
had to cut that out. They tried it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm not.
Yeah.
No, wrong household.
Yeah.
I'm not your bruh.
Yeah.
We not friends.
What did you call me?
Right. Like, nope. So, yeah.
Right.
Mom, they try. I mean, sometimes they try to be funny with it, but yeah, mom and my husband's side, they're Filipino, so my nickname in real life is Nai, but mom in Tagalog is Nai too.
Okay.
So the boys call me Nai. Yeah,
that's really cute.
Mm-hmm. I like that you, because I've actually heard that from other people. My son is only 2.5. He's going to be 3 in April. I'm in denial. But I have heard other people talking about the bruh.
Yeah.
It's real. It doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl.
No. Yeah.
Everybody's bruh. Come on, bruh.
And it's interesting you mentioned the friend divide in parenting, because are you getting into that age?
Yes. I mean, it's fun as they get older, because you do you have that sense of like independence, and you can like have like, conversations with them, like, oh, how's your day going? Or like they're like really in their feelings and they're telling you, like, those things are pretty cool, but you have to reel it like in real quick, because they have social media in a way that we didn't have. Yeah. And so there's all these like kind of weird parodies that go on YouTube and YouTube Kids, where they think that they can talk to you any kind of way because they saw some kid do it on YouTube. So that's different. I mean, I felt like kids have always done that, but I think it's exacerbated right now. So I have to, I make it very clear.
I think it's a whole other level that is like you really have to kind of pay attention to that.
Oh, yeah.
With the iPads and all that.
Yeah, we track. We're like real serious on the iPad. Like they have to ask for extra time. You know, we do all of that kind of stuff.
Do you do
on
like
the
an
iPads.
allotment for like the day? Or
Yeah. It shuts off at a certain time. They can't get on it. But then there's sometimes where you get on, and I'm like, okay. Like currently, my middle son is very much into Gordon Ramsay.
Okay.
Oh,
Randomly,
sure.
'Cause that's a thing,
Okay.
right? Cooking and chef shows is
great.
Yeah.
He is very entertaining
Yeah,
to
he
watch,
says
though.
he says Gordon Ramsay. I want to go to his restaurants. I was like, Gordon Ramsay, what is happening? And then I looked in the shorts on the YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gordon Ramsay came up.
Yeah.
He's going Japanese stainless steel
Yes,
knives for
yes.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Come on.
But do you think that influence
Hey.
comes from you because you cook?
Yes, I think it does
Yeah.
because he's been like totally into like the food. Or the youngest one, we're
Okay.
trying to get into eating a little bit more.
Yeah.
Sure.
But now that like I've been cooking and letting him be a part of it, now he's totally into it. And I think maybe that is, you're right, where Gordon Ramsay
Yeah.
came from. I was like, that's so random.
So as Naila was talking about things she doesn't want her son calling her,
Bruh.
I think of things maybe that when you were being raised and there was a mother figure around, and you think about the things that you didn't do or shouldn't say. Or is anything coming to mind or anything you used to get in trouble for? Pat immediately nodded.
Because my brothers and I called my mom dude one time. It was a very fast end. Yeah, it was a very swift end to that. We thought we could sneak it in, but we didn't sneak it in.
No more.
Hey, dude. No.
No, don't try that.
I never went with slang for my mom, but if I called her mother, she hated it. Because that's what she would call her mom if she was mad. So then she never should have told me that information. So then when I was a teenager and I wanted to like push her buttons, I would say, yes, mother, like with all that attitude. And she would be like, oh my, anyway. Yeah.
It's all about the inflection.
Yeah.
too,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
It's how you say it. And another thing that Naila also brought up is the village that it
Yes.
takes. And you think we are getting back to that, or do we have a social responsibility at least?
I think we have to because everybody has to work.
Yeah.
I really do. Especially now, like financially, I think people are like, look, I have to go in, I have to do extra hours. Can you help me? And really making folks like friends kind of just step in.
Yeah.
If they don't have family or family members, they're kind of like, hey, I'll come in and help because I know you have to do this. So I think we're kind of getting back to that point by necessity. I think folks are also kind of looking at schools differently, and they're trying to decide like, hey, do I want to homeschool? Do I want them to be in public school system? Do I want to be closer to them? I think there's a lot of information that's out now where people are trying to figure out, is this going to be good for my child's mental health? All those types of things I think are playing a role. And it's not necessarily in the traditional village that in the sense of I would like, but I feel like it's becoming that by necessity.
Yeah. Well, and you raise a good point about working. And, if you think about it too, there's people that might relocate for jobs and you may not have family in areas. So there's people and friends that step up. I know my son has a lot of aunties
Oh yes, definitely the aunties
that stepped up on there.
Because it costs a lot of money. After you need help and nannies, babysitters, all those things, they cost money. And I think getting into these kind of like, sometimes I call them like motherhood, sisterhoods, where hey, I can watch both of your kids, bring them over. I can do that with my sister-in-law, like just bring them over, I'm cool, like or can you watch my son? Like all of those things I think matter now, because everyone I think is really just trying to survive, and kids are high maintenance in a way that they weren't before.
Yeah.
Daycare's like more expensive now than
daycare
ever.
is outrageous.
Yeah.
That's a full salary. I don't know. Single parents, it's almost
Oh,
impossible.
it's crazy. I mean, they're just as much as people's mortgages,
Yeah.
especially if you have more than one, and like that little 10% discount is not it. If you have twins or you have multiple kids that are in that age range that have to go, it's difficult. I think we need to have better laws and policies and just more care and affordability to get help, especially when you have working moms and working dads, because it's a lot. I mean, I know some people whose husbands are like, I'm going to be a house husband because it costs too much to go to daycare. I'd rather
Financially, it
stay
makes
home
sense.
because their wife may make more money.
My parents had to do split shifts when I was growing up because I was a twin, so they couldn't afford to have twins in daycare.
Oh, that's right.
And so I was like raised by a village of like mostly women. It was my grandma, my aunt, and my mom, and then my dad would work nights, and they did that for 2 years, and then they would switch off, and then my mom would work nights, and my dad would work days.
Yeah.
So, but then it was a rotation of like, okay, grandma will pick us up on like Tuesdays, Thursdays, then it'll be my Aunt Cindy, and then my mom and my dad, like we'll cover until we go to bed. But yeah, it's like tough, and it's only gotten like worse.
Oh
too.
yeah, like everybody's a co-parent at this point.
Yeah.
I guess.
Do you think these things have affected people's choices to have children?
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm warned about it all the time. I don't have kids. Great.
Well, people wonder why like the birth rate in the country, like globally, actually, like a lot of like developed nations, like is declining rapidly because the cost of living is out of control. The cost of housing is out of control. Childcare, it's weighs on everybody's minds.
Yeah, and there's so many other things. The social media aspect of trying to deal with, like, now that we acknowledge mental health in a very different kind of way, that strains on people. Even the idea of like just having a baby is stressful for some folks, like financially or just mental health wise, of like the physicality of like, am I going to be okay? Like there's hospital rates where childbirth rates, like women are dying. Do I want to go through that? Is that something that I'm going to risk my life for? I don't know. So there's a lot of questions that are coming in to play.
Yeah. I live that DINK lifestyle.
Yeah.
Dual income,
DINK.
no kid.
Listen, I think I would like to change. I think your status is different because there's also dual income with a dog.
Oh, that one.
But you have a cat, so
I have a dog.
You do have a dog?
Yeah, I have a dog.
Okay, so you
dual,
would be a
what is it?
dinkwad.
Yeah, we're dinkwads too.
I didn't.
Oh my gosh.
I wanted to preface that and explain it before I
Instead
said
of
the
just
word.
calling me a dinkwad.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that.
So just to make sure we're being accurate, accurately.
So technically I'm living that dinkwad lifestyle. I can't even say that without laughing, but I'm really enjoying it. All my friends, most of my friends that I have here have kids, and I love that for them. I love kids. I respect them so much. I love getting to go to my friends' houses and hold their babies and, you know, give them a break, let them eat dinner, and I can hold the babies. I love it. I love it. But I'm a performer, and at some point, if I want to, you know, grow my own baby in my own body, that's crazy. That's going to take, I mean, that's, Naila, I feel like you understand, like dancer, performer, like it changes your entire body, changes everything about you. So how do you manage that? And I'm kind of in this place where I've got a few other friends in the theater industry that are also kind of like, well, what do we do? Like, I think you just do it and then just like hope for the best and just kind of like go for it, or do you, I don't know.
Well, and I think
there's a lot to consider.
Yeah. These are conversations that you think people are having, and they're not really openly.
Most
these
people
fears
really don't, because it's almost like poo-poo to like say you don't want a kid as a woman.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And, I mean, I would say the best way to do it is just to do. First of all, when people plan, that usually is when a lot of actually have a difficult time having kids, because they're like focusing a lot on it, like
stressing their eggs,
you know, and that's a whole level
gosh.
of stress. But the other part of it is when folks want to have kids, it is a decision, particularly like in our field. Like that was a decision for me, but I also knew like, okay, I'm going to try this other side of the field.
Yeah.
Because, you know, dance world, you short-lived anyway, really, because you rely so heavily on your body. But after having my own child and then being a bonus mom to two, it doesn't matter if you plan it or not. You are never prepared for kids.
That's what general consensus seems to be. Never gonna really be ready.
Oh yeah, your diaper bag and like trying to go delivery. That's not real.
Yeah.
None of it's real. The car seat. None of that is. You can't, because every child has their own personality. Every child comes in with all of their own health things. They're all like mental health. Everyone is different. You are building human beings, and in the world that we live in, that is not as easy as it once was. And I don't ever think raising a child is easy.
No, and I think that, I mean, I think there is a there still is a stigma of, yes, we want to support working women, okay, and we want to support careers, but then a woman or a mother in the workplace, what are their perceptions? You know, are you going to be sidetracked? Are you going to be able to come to work? Because your kids are going to get sick.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, you know, it's that perception that once you do become a mother, oh, well, maybe you're not going to be as professional now. Even if you are still, even if you are still going 110%, what is that perception?
Oh, yeah. Even the likelihood of like someone gets married or just like in a relationship for a long time, like, oh, we got to be careful because, you know, she can still have kids. It's like, what? Yeah. Is this serious? Like, are you really like preemptively putting children on me?
It's wild. And it's so stressful too, because it feels like everybody, especially in my age group, everybody's in my business all the time. When you gonna have kids? When you gonna have kids? Like, I'll tell you. You don't have to ask me. I'll let you know if that's something that's gonna happen. I promise. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
You don't have to ask.
But like, whose business? Or, you know, if you have a kid, was that planned? Or like, what? Why are you in my business?
Right.
In case you are just joining us, you're listening to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, here with Dr. Naila Ansari-Catilo, Ashleigh Chrisena Ricci, and Pat Kelly. In honor of Women's History Month, we are talking about all sides of womanhood, and Pat has been courageous enough to join us today. You were, as you've talked about it, you were raised in a home with two brothers, but you were raised by a village of women. Yes.
Village of women, and a very strong mom who imparted a lot of great values on us, which, like, really has helped in all areas of life. But yeah, she really didn't, you know, we're all giant guys, and it's a very like, you know, from the outside, like a very traditionally masculine household. We all played football. I come from a big football family, and it was very like rough and tumble, throw each other around. But yeah, my mom always was, you know, we always knew, like, all right, we gotta
don't play with your mom.
No, never.
Yeah. Well, and I like that we've been discussing all aspects of womanhood and parenting and decisions to or not to, or to have a dog, or financial decisions, because they're really, you know, like, as you mentioned, Naila, there can be all the plans, and you could say with anything in life, you can say, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and it's always railroaded, you know, or it's so. I like that we're talking about all of these things, and I like that, Chrisena, that we are. Should we talk about these other? Chrisena's a dinkwad, dual income, no kids with a dog.
Darn straight.
Dink's dual income, no kids. Sink's single income, no kids.
Okay.
I'm not going to read these other Kippers.
A kipper.
Kids in parents' pockets eroding retirement savings. I don't think that has anything.
Oh, well.
Is that like
trust
is that like the 30-year-old that lives in his mom's basement still? Like, is that?
Can I sign up for that?
No,
I've been doing the dinkwad for a while. It's a little harder than they say. I want to go back to a kipper.
No, you respect your mom too much, Pat. You're not going to do that.
I know.
Don't stress her out.
She wouldn't let me in the house.
For dinner, maybe, but
Yeah.
But I think in relation to those labels, I think the reason they've been established is because there are so many options, and there are maybe reasons that people are choosing to be single or have a dog or have a, you know, there aren't these like cut and dry definitions of womanhood and motherhood.
Yeah.
for
Not
sure.
that there ever have been, but
I think people are really thinking about it more now. Like, going back to what you were saying, like more like considerations around it. That idea of, I'm bringing a person into the world, and I'm not. A lot of people traditionally, I feel like it was like, we just want to have a baby because it's the next thing you do.
Right.
Yeah.
But now more people are cognizant of like, this is a future human that is going to grow into be their own person and the world they're going to inhabit, and we have to consider all those factors. And I feel like right now a lot of people are like, well, do we want to do that?
Right.
With the world that's happening?
See, I think I'm really interested in fostering. The foster system is so broken, and there are so many kids and young people that need support, and I feel like I could do that. I mean, I'm not going to be perfect at it, but I can.
you won't be perfect.
But I'm not going to be perfect at
don't worry
anything.
about
So, like, you know what I mean?
Throw
like,
that out the window.
already, I know, like, I think I could do that. I think I'd be a good fit for that. But the only thing, I think I would get really attached. So I think that I could see that being tough as a foster. But I think that would be such an interesting avenue to explore instead of growing my own.
Well, I think, Christina, you can have motherly instincts and motherly traits and characteristics and not have your own biological children. I mean, before I was a mom, I mothered people at work. And then, when I knew I was becoming a mom, I'm like, I don't know how to do this. What am I going to do? But, you sort of realize you have some of these traits. And I think you're right. I think, the foster system is flawed, but needs good people.
Needs people who are willing to try at least, like if I'm providing a safe environment and feeding a kid and making sure that they're clean and clothed and safe, that's better than some of what's out there right now. So I don't know. We'll see.
Listen, you know what? You don't have to explain anything to anybody. I was going to say, you don't have to explain
Man
anything.
plans and God laughs, right? So who knows?
What are some of the stigmas around motherhood, and do you think those have changed? Do you think they've improved?
I think there's a reality that's coming into play that every woman who births a child is not a mother. And I think that people have to, I think in some ways it can be like a gift and curse, but there's a lot of expectation on mothers that they are supposed to be this perfect thing. And obviously there's like trauma that can go span the distance of like why people could not like their mothers for whatever reason. But I think that we tend to create a lot of trauma around mothering, and I think people have a lot of issues with mothers, not me personally, but in terms of like what I've seen, because they have this expectation of something that person is just really not capable of. And so just because they were physically able to have a baby doesn't necessarily mean that they were capable of being the mother in which they wanted to be. And that's I think twofold in the sense of socially we've created all these images on television and in all these different books of like what the perfect mom is supposed to be. So when you don't have that expectation, the kid is always let down. And like now there's all these things like I'm going to therapy because of my parents. And so it's like, that's yes. And also what does that really mean of really the expectations of mothers? And I think we have to do better as a society to understand that the mothers are in that role, and sometimes people want to be in that role. Sometimes it accidentally happens that they're in that role. Sometimes people are forced in that role. But I don't think that we should have the expectation that all mothers need to mother the same way. And I think that I think when people have mother issues, it causes a ripple effect on the entire country and globally.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Naila, because it also relates to if you support women and women support each other, you support all women,
right?
So whether whatever your perception of a good mother is, or the Instagram family, or how somebody's conducting their day or their career, or when they're picking their kid up at the end of the day, if we are going to support women, we are supporting all women.
Oh yeah, and I think you also have to be honest with your own children about this. Like, look, I don't have it in me today. Like, I remember my mom always worked, and I don't ever remember being like, I'm so mad my mom works all the time. I remember being really proud of her because she was always honest, and I saw her like actually working, and that like her working was a benefit to us as kids. I think you have this whole idea with social media now is like, I'm going to bake cookies and do the perfect cookies and look how great I am as a mom, and I'm going to take a picture and I'm going to do all these things. It's almost worse than like the Brady Bunch.
Oh yeah, because I think Pinterest didn't help.
Oh, Pinterest is ridiculous. It's like,
because that only gives you like a very narrow window, and it's like, well, I'm going to like, that's not a real human. That's just a very curated piece of content.
And you're also looking at multi-million-dollar like mansions and houses with these like billionaires that are posting these pictures that you got online. I was like, okay, I'm sorry, your vision board does not need to be.
But also, like, it's kind of the what was that? There was that saying going around like a few years ago that was like, you have the same amount of hours in a day that Beyonce has. Like, what have you done with your 24 hours?
First of all, Beyonce got like 6 nannies.
So so this is the point. So people were saying that, and then it was like, but no, we really don't, because the rest of us, like, sure, I've got 24 hours in the day just like she does, but I have to cook, I have to clean, or my partner's cooking and cleaning. We're taking turns with that. We're sharing that, load at home of who's doing what chore and who's doing what cleaning or whatever at home. And then you've also got to work. And then, so you don't have the same amount of time. So that's a huge, the socioeconomic status of where your family is has a huge impact on how people might perceive your mothering or your parenting skills, because you only have so much time in each day, and most of it's got to be spent working.
Right.
For most of us.
Listen, you brought up Beyonce, and we are going to be talking about in the next segment about some of our women heroes in pop culture. So Beyonce might be on my list.
Oh, okay.
I like her as a mom, okay?
Look, Blue Ivy's living her best life. Okay.
Yeah, she's doing great.
So that's coming up next on Group Chat.
Every time that we breathe in now, there's a new beginning. We're soaring away, we're starting today. So dive with me. We're alive, alive, alive. We're alive.
Welcome back to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, and I'm joined by Dr. Naila Ansari-Catilo, professor at Buffalo State University, choreographer, podcaster, performing artist. I don't mean, there's a list. I'm like out of breath. Ashleigh Chrisena Ricci, you know her as host of Buffalo Toronto Public Media's digital series, Let's Go. She is also a performer in theater in the area. And Pat Kelly, filmmaker and director of content creation at Buffalo Toronto Public Media. Today we're shining a spotlight on the incredible women who have shaped our world. And since this is Group Chat and it's a pop culture show, let's talk about women in pop culture and your inspirations and influences. And, we started this talking about motherhood, and I do have to say that I think I was more influenced growing up by actual women in my life. Like there were obviously, people that I liked in the media, but I think as far as being completely influenced, it was more people that I saw every day. But there is an influence in pop culture. So who are some people that come to mind?
Dolly Parton.
I was just going to say Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton.
Her
I know,
husband
her
just
husband died this
I
week.
know.
I'm so sorry for her loss.
But Dolly, yeah.
Dolly Parton. So I grew up in Kentucky, and we would go to Tennessee pretty frequently in the fall time, especially because it's beautiful in the Smoky Mountains that time of year. And I just grew up. Dolly is such a treasure in that area. She gives back to the community. She has the library series where she sends free books to children. And she just really gives back to that community, which is a community that needs a lot of love, that gets forgotten about a lot in Appalachia. So she's always been one of my favorites, but I love just like her big hair and her fake nails and like her crazy lashes and then her little laugh. Like I've just always loved her. From the moment I saw her, I was like, who is that? She's like a Barbie doll. Like I love her so much. And she's intelligent. She can laugh at herself. She's from the same area that I grew up in. So it really feels like, it took her a lot of courage to be who she was.
Yeah.
But because she did that, now she's like this huge success. Also her incredible talent and songwriting skills. But that's just who she is. And that is just... I love Dolly.
Have you seen
And
her
she
perform?
came from poverty.
Yes,
Not
I
live.
love Dolly Parton.
I would
was
die.
thinking the same thing.
She has she's about to have a Broadway musical. Do you know this?
Yes.
Okay. So they just did the search for Dolly on social media, and I'm rooting for you, Elise. You won't hear this, but if you do, I'm rooting for you. But I am just so excited for that. Like, I can't wait to go see it. I've got to go there like opening night. I've got to buy tickets. I've got to figure out how to do that. But yeah, she doesn't. It's really hard to find a performance of her live these days. She doesn't tour. But sometimes she'll just like pop up and do a live show, but no one knows when it's going to happen. So it's like, I know.
That's like
I know.
magic. Then
I would.
That is magic.
I would weep.
Do you think, as we were kind of saying, do you think one of the draws with Dolly too is just seeing somebody that you know what they went through or know what they came from, and it wasn't an easy start. And she did these things with herself that were, you know, they weren't the norm at the time, and the things she was wearing, and she was herself. I think I'm most drawn to women performers that are themselves, and they had some sort of story behind it, you know. I just read Loretta Lynn's book, and they were very similar. I mean, come on.
I love Loretta
Very
too.
similar characters.
Yeah,
like
yep.
she grew up dirt floor, poor, and they both they had the same similar values. They, you know, very different presentation of themselves.
Yes.
And they didn't think they had to be each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and they didn't let people pit them against each other,
Right.
which is, as you know, still
That's-
a thing
yeah, that's hard
in
to
the
do.
entertainment business with, you know, putting women against each other. So I'm glad Dolly was
Parton.
on my
That
list.
was
Parton.
literally you literally took my name.
Really?
That, because I love Dolly Parton.
She
There's something
is.
about Dolly Parton. It doesn't matter what race you are, gender, ethnicity. There is something about Dolly Parton that reeks like, if I were to say define as a mother without the like literal definition of a mother, is that someone that is like wholeheartedly understanding but unapologetically themselves.
Yeah.
Like you just feel like you could just go to her and say whatever and you won't be judged.
Yeah.
Like that's, and I think that is like a definition of a
She's-
mom.
Yep.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
everybody's
Hearing-
mom.
Yeah.
Just
She'd say, "Oh, honey."
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and get you through too, and let you
Yeah.
like tell you about your life, tell you when you're wrong, tell you when you're right, but like
Yeah.
not in a judgy way.
Disappear in the hair.
Yes.
And,
Oh my gosh, what do you think
The
she
nails.
smells like? I think she
She,
probably
like,
smells
she has
so
to be, 'cause
good.
she cares too much about what she look like to smell bad.
No, she smells
Just
good.
like she smells good.
I just like I
I'd
want to
like-
know what kind of hairspray she uses. Like I want to know all of these things.
I'd like to think it's a rotating scent. Like she's got a
yeah,
whole.
I see that too.
You
But
know,
she
Okay.
has like a whole blamer.
Okay.
kind of like makeup.
lot.
It's just there's also scents that perfumes,
Yeah.
very expensive perfumes.
But there also has to be some type of humility because you're not with someone for 60 years
Yeah.
being shallow.
Right.
He
Yeah.
also stayed out of the spotlight mostly.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was, that's like for 60 years. My heart goes out to her.
Yeah.
And
Well,
he
you
was a big
know-
cheerleader for her
Yes.
behind the
Yeah.
scenes and supportive.
So part of her persona, like the big wigs, and she always wears long sleeves. She has tattoos. She has a lot of tattoos, but she wears long sleeves to keep it covered when she's performing. And then when she goes out into the real world, she has like brown mousy hair. And so like Dolly is this persona that she has. It's who she is, but it's this version of herself. And then when she goes out into the, real world, she can take the wig off and she can be her real self because she's built this character. But yeah, I just love her to pieces.
Well, talking about character and personas, it's funny that when we wrapped that last segment, we're talking about Beyonce. And, I think with womanhood and motherhood, I more see people that are influencers trying to make things look perfect. And then I see celebrities and I'm like, I don't take it as real.
Right.
So I think when I look at Beyonce as a mother, I think of somebody that I grew up with, and then she became a mother, and then had some relationship problems.
Right. Yeah.
But then, so I don't know. I looked at her as almost an influence in the entertainment industry.
Sure.
That I could feel that she was a badass performer.
Yeah.
And then she had kids. And,
Yeah.
so I would say Beyonce on that list because I think I kind of came up with her.
Yeah, and I think their
Sure.
expectations are different as celebrities.
Yeah.
too. Like everyone can assume certain things, but when your parent is a celebrity, that's a different level of pressure than the average kid doesn't have to deal with. And also, like, you have to understand that your mom might not be as there as much as you want them to be, or that they have to go on tour for long periods of time. I know that was something that Whitney was like really adamant about, like wanting to bring her daughter on. Well, whether that was a good choice or not, doesn't really matter. But she wanted, Bobby Christina to be with her all the time because that was such a complicated lifestyle that they live. So I think everybody tries to mother in the ways that they can based on the lifestyle that they live.
Yeah. Well, and going back, I was reading Loretta Lynn's book, and she said later in life, maybe I left them for too long, but being a woman in the era of entertainment, I had to play as many shows as the men did.
Right, right.
So, later on in life, she's explaining this to her children, and they're like, okay, Mom, we forgive you.
Who says it best is Maya Angelou. She talked about her mother, and she said, my mother was never a good mother to a child, but she was a great mother to an adult.
Wow.
And they didn't have that. But when she
Yeah.
said that, I was like, as a mother now, like I got that. I was like, wow. Like you have some women that are like, I can't do this kid thing. Like, can we just skip up till when you're 25?
Yeah.
And you're not yelling at me anymore. We can have like a relationship where we can just talk about life and I could be like your guiding star.
Yeah.
Sure.
But when she said that, I was like, that is so interesting, because we put the perception that every single woman is nurturing and like goo goo gaga and like I just love these babies all the time, but not every woman is like that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So when you just said that about Loretta, I was like,
Yeah.
that is totally dinged what Maya Angelou said.
Nobody gives you the playbook either.
No.
You know, so Maya Angelou, I mean, definitely.
Yeah, she's everybody's mama.
Everybody,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about her that I loved is that she also kept her son out of the spotlight, because she does have a child that she had young, and she wrote about him in his books. But the way he talks about her, you can tell that even though you knew she had to do a lot of stuff, she was there. She was attentive as a mom when she was there and when she was present. Because I think you can have a mom that's there 24/7 and they're not present at all.
Oh yeah.
Right?
sure.
Like, and so I always appreciated that about Maya. I'm like, I know her, but
Yeah.
I mean, she's just a philosopher in
Yes,
her own
yeah.
way on everything she talks about. So, Pat, you know, your life has been film and creation and pop culture. Who are some of the women that have stuck out to you?
My favorite writer is Elena Ferrante, and like a few years ago, I got engrossed. Have you ever read the Neapolitan novels? It's like My Brilliant Friend, Story of the Lost Child. There's an HBO series about it now. Very, very famous in Italy. But like, I was at first a little bit like, my wife was reading them, and they're like 700-page novels. She's a really big reader. I read, but I was like, I haven't read like this big a book since like Harry Potter. But I started reading it one night, and I just could not put it down. And it like turned out to be my favorite novel. The author considers them one full novel, so I think it's like over 2,000 pages. But it's this really beautiful story of these two women who grow up in poverty in Naples, Italy, and it follows their life from the 1940s all the way up to the 1990s, and as their friendship like intertwines through their lives, and it goes through the complexities of motherhood and friendship, and how do you raise these children while making mistakes, and an incredibly like beautiful book, but it really just like there's something like magic about it with her writing. And I wanted to learn more about her, but it's a pseudonym and they don't really know much. Like she hides. But, so it creates this like era of mystery around it too, but there's something that is so truthful in her prose that it just, to me, it really gets the complexity of the idea of like the woman. It just perfectly encapsulates all of this in this writing. So that's something as an adult that after reading it, it just gives me like an entirely new perspective on what womanhood is and motherhood. Highly suggest reading them if you.
I wrote.
I know.
I wrote that down.
I mean, that down.
Yeah.
But listen to us sitting here as adults talking about the women that influence us in pop culture. What would your 12 or 13 or 14-year-old self be saying?
Still Dolly Parton. I would also add Lucille Ball onto the list because she was a really interesting character, but I love that she was a producer and she had this, I don't know, I think she's a very interesting person because she was definitely a person that was kind of out of their time. The fact that she was producing in charge of this television show, this sitcom, and then having to adhere to the rules of the sitcom world, right?
Yeah.
Like the two separate beds and the perfect wife, that she was kind of fighting against that motif even in the show. That's what makes it so funny, is that she's bad at being this stereotypical mom, you know? When she like goes to bake the bread and the bread is shooting out of the like, that is what made it
you
so
didn't
funny.
think about all that stuff when you were 13. You
I
just thought she was
did.
funny.
I thought she was so funny, and also
Christina might have thought about that.
I did.
She totally
I did.
She
I was
totally
like,
did.
whoa. But I think also I would probably at 13, I would have been like Elle Woods in Legally Blonde.
Yes,
she is like she's the girl. That's when she, in that like revenge scene when she's like going to get the laptop in the bunny costume, I'm like, that's the kind of girl I want to be.
Oh, like it's hard?
Oh, what? Like it's hard? Oh, God. What a good line.
Yeah.
In case you're just joining us, you're listening to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, here with Dr. Naila Ansari-Catilo, Ashleigh Chrisena Ricci, and Pat Kelly. And we are talking about influences. It's Women's History Month. And we have gone back from our adult reactions and answers to back to our teenage selves. And we have learned that Christina was very introspective when she was preteen, and then, but also Legally Blonde.
Well, I grew up in a time when it was very like, girls rule, boys drool. And I embraced that.
Yeah.
I grew up, I'm an only child. And so it was very easy for me to like not have to deal with boys and like cooties and and I like was a dancer and like didn't really deal with men ever. And my dad is just so great. And he was always playing Pretty Princess with me growing up, even though he is not in fact a pretty princess, but he would let me do all of the little girl things, you know, like paint his nails or whatever. And so I just kind of had this very protected childhood where I think I really had, when I was 13, I did not need to have any of that confidence that I had, but I had so much confidence. I had those like the braces with the alternating color rubber bands, you know what I'm talking about?
I remember those.
And then roll-on body glitter just everywhere, and just wearing, I've always been into like vintage thrifting clothes, so I'm wearing like some weird velour suit from the 70s, and I would walk into middle school and just be like, I'm the coolest. I wasn't, but nobody told me that. Like,
Did you
I was
Lisa
like, no.
Frank?
Well, yeah, but that was like, no offense, Pat, but that was like cool for 10-year-olds. But when I was like 12 and 13, I was kind of like, I was more into like Polly Pocket still, but like kind of ironically, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is there anybody that you liked, or, you know, even if you just enjoyed their content or looked up to them, that fell from grace later on in your life that you were disappointed by, or people that still held as high?
I mean,
Like
sort
most
of.
celebrities I watched it like on TV.
I know,
and I'm like,
I
see
know,
them in
I
real
know.
life in interviews. I'm like,
Yeah, it's got no point. It's got no point. Anytime I see a celebrity now, and I'm like, they're good at what they do. I'm not going to have a parasocial relationship
Right.
here because they'll
Yeah.
just let you down.
I want them to be like Denzel Washington, like still not have an Instagram.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? I could just
Yeah.
appreciate you for
Yes.
the work that you do in
Yeah.
your occasional interviews. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
okay, but maybe we could talk about one person, Amanda Bynes. Loved her.
Yeah.
I like grew up
yes.
with her watching the
yeah.
Amanda Show.
Yeah, bringing the
and
dancing
then
lobsters.
she was doing, and then she did like, she had a brief but pretty good movie film
Yeah,
career.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, she was-
And those were all the movies that my age group were watching. And then she had this horrible sort of downfall.
That was
Because
Britney Spears for
there
me.
was a lot happening.
Me too. I was a
Right?
big Britney fan.
Yeah.
Behind the music, like, I wanted to know
be fair,
everything
Diary,
about
Yeah.
her.
the entire like
Yes.
entertainment apparatus just putting all that weight on
Yes.
like
Children.
children
yes.
and like
Children.
and like also the complexities too with like being a young girl and subjected
Yes.
to the eyes of society
Yes.
too, and like what you're trying to be protected from, and like what, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like that is something that it really does so much damage, and then that's why you see so many like young girls who become women
Yeah.
and they end up like burning out in some capacity
Yeah.
or having like mental health issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, if you read, you know, if you go back and read like Rolling Stone magazine and all the profiles of Britney Spears, the way women were written about,
I know.
not that
Yeah.
long ago. We're not
yeah.
talking
No,
1950.
at
We're
all.
not talking how these young girls were
it's
portrayed.
disgusting.
Yeah.
There
Even
was-
without social media then.
There was an internet countdown clock for when Britney Spears
Yes.
turned 18.
Yeah.
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 that's
My wife and I were
wild.
just talking about that the other night, and we're like, yeah, just what, and that was like relatively
gross.
recent. It was like what, 20 years ago?
Yeah, which
maybe?
is crazy.
Yeah.
It's, and so to my point, yes, they've fallen, but look at how Amanda Bynes has kind of turned her life around. She's still recovering from that trauma, but she just opened her own art show. She like partnered with someone and she did a visual art gallery. Like she did her art and she she had an art show. Like that's awesome. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say most of the people that I loved back then have had a fall from grace in a way that it's irredeemable.
Yeah.
I think that now we're starting to see them kind of like get over it. Like Lindsay Lohan, the glow up that she's got, you know, she kind of had a dumpster fire 10 years and then has reemerged. And
Well, and there are conversations about it now.
Right.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
that probably weren't being had before. They were just, you
Yeah.
don't like them anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
They went away or,
Yeah.
you know. So I do think we might be getting better at that, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I think we might be recreating the same people in different ways.
Sure.
Right.
So, so yeah, do you think that we are improving in how we portray women in media?
Oh no, absolutely no. That was just it's so funny because I was just
She's
showing
like, no.
in class the other day, like the difference between like agency and then inappropriateness. And I was, sharing like Cardi B videos and like Glorilla and like some of these people like who absolutely love their music, but it's getting to an age so younger than I feel like when we were getting it, that where's the line and like where do we understand like this level of like I'm a woman and I want to have agency and I rule the world and all these other things, which is great, and then at what point is it like, do I want my child to learn that now? Because it's a different, because there's a lot of other things that go into like speaking of like Amanda Bynes and Britney Spears, there's a whole other lifestyle that goes into these lifestyles of like this idea of like total agency and you do whatever you want to do with your body and all these other things. So I think some of it is like a little bit of a curse. Like it's a gift that we can be more open with ourselves and our bodies and we're not like, stuck in the house and totally being domesticated in certain ways. But at the same time, it's like, are we too far to an end where we're just like, okay, we're reaching these little girls at an age that we really can't understand? I don't know. That's more of like a moral ethical question that I don't know if we're trying to go that deep, but.
And then, then you add now, there's also the social media component of everything being just so much more visible.
Right.
And in some ways it draws good attention.
Right.
The next segment we're going to be talking about female athletes. So, there has been, social media has maybe helped get the word out and exposure to athletes and, but then you have the curse of always being under the microscope.
Right.
And battling the things that you just talked about. So we're not figuring out the problems of the world, right? Not just yet anyway. But when we come back from the break, we're going to continue to talk about the unstoppable women changing the game on the fields, the court, and beyond. So Group Chat and WBFO will be right back.
Every time that we breathe in now, there's a new beginning. We're soaring away, we're starting today, so dive with me. We're alive, 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 we're alive.
Welcome back to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, and here with my guests, Dr. Naila Ansari-Catilo, professor at Buffalo State University, choreographer, podcaster, and performing artist, Ashleigh Chrisena Ricci, performer and host of Buffalo Toronto Public Media's digital series Let's Go, and Pat Kelly, filmmaker and director of content creation at Buffalo Toronto Public Media. In honor of Women's History Month, we are talking about the women that make the world go around year-round, highlighting that. We've talked about motherhood. We've talked about women in pop culture. Women in sports has been a topic we've talked about a lot this past year on Group Chat. So, from breaking records, showing more exposure to certain sports. How do you think women's sports have evolved?
Well, Whoopi just starting that network. I don't know if you heard about that.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm super excited about, where she's just going to be highlighted. Essentially kind of like what people know as like a ESPN, but it's all women, like global women's sports, just women's sports.
That's right.
So I feel like even that impact just media-wise, because most times we don't get to see women's sports unless they are like the WNBA, which now is becoming more popular, but has been around for a while. Yeah. But like to be able to see that women are playing all sports right now, and it's just not kind of like this limited thing to like the WNBA or like the football where they're wearing like poom poom shorts. What is that called?
What did
I don't
you
know.
say?
There's like
yes,
they're
yes,
like they're
yes.
like wearing like Daisy Dukes.
Yeah, I
It's like
know.
a thing because
Yeah.
like I think men have like been trying to like shift women because it is becoming so popular in
Yep.
the ways in which they want women to look. And so I think we, you know, there's that part of it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think women are like going in and like taking it over, and I'm hoping this new network with Whoopi really helps to like just, you know, exacerbate everything on a big scale in a good way.
Sure.
So she's going to be heading the whole network.
Yeah, I
in
guess she
women's
like
sports.
put in money to get a new network for women
Cool.
Yeah,
in
Whoopi
sports.
Goldberg.
So, yeah.
Much like Oprah.
Yes,
right?
yep,
Like Oprah's
similar.
network. Who I didn't get to bring up before.
I know she's like
Oprah.
also everybody's like auntie
Yeah.
auntie mom. Yeah.
So the good thing about that too is that means, that there's other people out there that are recognizing that women's sports are worth investing in, because as you know, nobody's just going to give her a network because she wants it.
Oh yeah,
So
and the
there's-
pay salary. Like, I mean, this is like the issue. Is like women's sports is becoming more popular than it has been, but the salaries are not salarying. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Even with the WNBA, when they found out, I think they put out all those different like women's salaries that were like making like Angel Reese was making. So you would allegedly think she would make all this money, and she was coming in making like everybody else's like normal kind of job. Everyone was like,
Yeah.
wait,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
And like they're getting money from sponsorships and stuff, but still like their base salary is like nothing compared to NBA contracts. And I think with the audience growing, if an audience is growing, their pay should also be growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you think those conversations will happen? I mean, they're going to want to keep them on the teams and
Yeah.
visible.
I mean, the issue is like sexism is real.
Yeah.
And so you have to get, and which is why I'm glad that this network is getting started, because I think we have to push to show up too, because quite frankly, a lot of it is also women not showing up to support women in sports.
Yeah.
Like men, you know, as much as we like to think it's always men, like where are the women that are showing up and like coming out and saying, hey, like we need to be supporting women's hockey, we need to be supporting doing this, we need to be, because there's a strong group of women that are like advocating for sports, and then there's still that group of women that are like, I don't think women should be playing sports, and it's just
Yeah.
like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Well, and Naila, again, you bring a good point. There was just a women's hockey tournament here. It was 2 weekends ago. One of our producers, Lynn Bader, went to the game. Her and her wife are big hockey fans. They went there. There were a ton of people there. I didn't know anything about it.
Right, right.
But it's like, even we have a responsibility to support those events.
Yes,
And
and make
encourage.
sure that we go and that everyone knows that it exists and that women are doing these sports and that they're doing them well. Like, I think that's the other misconception is like because women are playing sports that, you know, is just supposed to be men, that they're not good at it. Like, these women are like consummate athletes.
Yeah.
They're professional
They're
athletes.
totally,
It's-
and we shouldn't just be waiting till like the Olympics for soccer
No.
to come
Yeah.
around and watch women, or swimming or whatever, like every 4 years. Like these women are doing really difficult work every single day
yeah.
to go and show up on the field or in the,
One
you
of
know.
my favorite things in college was we would get like discounted tickets through the school to go to the New York Liberty games when they would play at the Garden, and me and my buddies, it was one of our favorite things. We just like go get a little buzz on the train and then like
Yeah.
get off at Madison Square Garden and then
Yeah.
just like watch the New York Liberty, and like we had so much fun. We would do that like every other week, and I loved it, and that's why like as it's grown, I've like loved the rise of the WNBA over the past like
I mean, people can
decade.
argue with me about this, but fundamentally, women's basketball is by far way better to watch than the NBA.
There's more strategy.
There's more strategy, and they're actually playing the game the way
Yeah.
that it's supposed to be played. If I
Yeah.
watched one more person try to take a ridiculous three in men's basketball
Mid-court.
because Steph Curry made it cool, like
It's starting to
So
creep into the
annoying.
WNBA.
It
though.
is,
Like,
and I'm gonna need them to
is.
stop that too.
I know. I've noticed.
Yes, it is creeping in. It is creeping in. But I think we can, you know,
Yeah.
maybe now that we mentioned it on here, they
Yeah.
will slow that down.
Yeah,
a
I
little bit.
appreciate that.
But the NBA has always been like college basketball. Really has been the like, okay, we're gonna watch this for like the real game.
Yeah.
And the NBA quickly became something like everybody started dunking, like
Trick
it
shots
became
and-
entertainment
Yeah.
and stuff like that. that.
You tune in at the finals with the NBA because
Yes, exactly.
they're just going up and down the court for
Right.
most of the season, and then they turn
Listen,
out.
all that three nonsense is creeping into college too. Because
Well, I know. Well,
you saw the Bama game, right?
listen,
So-
yeah. Can we
I
stop?
digress.
It's like, listen. Well, because it's not interesting anymore. Like,
Yeah.
like play defense.
Yeah.
And which is why I've always appreciated the WNBA because they will go hard. And like my son plays basketball right now, and I'm telling you, this little girl in his league, the D is amazing. And I'm like, I hope she is not on you on this game because you will not get down the court. Because she, I don't know, I find that women like fundamentally are playing the games and like being smart about how they're playing it and being strategic and less about like the gloat of it all.
Yeah. Christina, you're nodding.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I am.
How do you think we can be better about supporting women's sports? I mean, I'm sure you see this in theater.
Yeah.
And women supporting other women. What is this going to... How do we make this more of a mass appeal thing to a broader audience? And
I think that's a great question. And I think if we knew the answer, then it probably wouldn't be a question that we would even be asking, really. I do think I like basketball. I like to watch football. I like sports, but I'm on a very surface level. I like hockey. I don't know any of the rules, but I like going. I like when they hit each other against the glass. I think that's very exciting. That's okay. I think part of what we need to do is we need to take some of the fear away from it.
Yes.
Like I know as a woman, there are so many times where I've been like, oh yeah, I love the Sabres. I love going to the Sabres games. And they're like, oh yeah, name 5 players. First of all, shut right up.
Yeah.
You can shut up. I look good in my Sabres jersey and I have fun at the game. I'm cheering. I know when to cheer. I'm watching. I am participating. So I think some of it is maybe if we could just like not be so yucky about that. Like just let people be fans. Like let people just go to a game and have fun, and they don't need to know all the stats and all of the. And I will say I've never had a woman ask me to name 5. No offense, Pat. I've never had a woman ask me, name
like,
5.
I agree.
I hate guys who do that.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's off-putting, and it's like part of it. I think in guys who do that, like the gatekeeping people. In their minds, there's a competitive nature to sports, but because they're not playing the sports, they're like, well, I'll partake that way, and I'll gatekeep. So if I know every single stat, because all I do is sports betting now, it used to just be hang out in fantasy. Now it's sports betting. That's their window into the competition, and it's extremely off-putting. And
it's so, and I think that is a huge barrier because it's hard to just be like, oh yeah, well maybe I do want to like this and I want to get into this more, and then people are like, well, you don't even know the starters on the team. Yeah, I don't care. Care. It's not about that. I just like the game. I like watching people play, and I think if we could maybe approach it from that standpoint, as a society,
culture
I think that
of
would
encouragement, and
maybe just like, oh yeah, glad to have you in the fan base. Like maybe we don't have to make it so serious. It is supposed to be for entertainment's sake, and it's okay to just enjoy things. You don't have to know, like you can enjoy a band and not know the names of everyone in the band.
Yeah, you can wear the t-shirt.
You
It's
could
okay.
just go to the concert, buy the ticket, have a nice time. We don't have to make it so competitive for no reason. The athletes, they should be as competitive.
them
they
do
should
it.
be really. That is
That's
so
their
good for
job.
them. But like, I'm just there to have a good time. And I like sports, and I say that to people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, what teams do you?" And I'm like, "No, we're not going to do this. I like sports. I like to go to the sports, and I like to watch the sport, and then I like to leave, and it's a good time. It's like I'm a Yankees fan, but I didn't know.
Name
I shouldn't
every
because
Yankee
I
ever.
can't. If you wear a Yankee hat, and then they're like, name the starting
And I'm like,
lineup.
no, this is pink. And I used to go see the Yankees all the time when I lived in the city. So that's why
Starting lineup.
I have it.
Also, Yankees caps,
basketball talk
just a
right now.
cultural.
They're just cute.
Yankees caps have
Stop.
have surpassed baseball
They
in general.
have.
It's
And
just a
also-
status.
Aaron Judge. So I stuck my tongue out.
In case you've just joined us, you're listening to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, here with Dr. Naila Ansari-Catilo, Ashleigh Chrisena Ricci, and Pat Kelly. Speaking of women's sports and, trailblazing, I think when we started this conversation, we started out with a couple of power players. Who are some of the athletes that you think really shifted the conversation and demanded attention?
Serena.
Serena
Serena.
Williams.
In our household, we grew up playing tennis, me and my brothers, and also when that documentary came out, it was me, my brothers, and my dad. We all my mom, we all sat down, but it got every guy in the house crying. I looked over, my dad was just silently crying. He was acting tough, but it just she's so great. I love
Lisa
her.
Leslie was another one.
Yeah.
Mia Hamm.
Yes.
Oh, Mia.
Love Mia Hamm. Oh my God, I had a jersey.
Yes.
Yep.
when
All
I
my
was
friends
younger.
had posters of her
Yes.
in their bedrooms.
I want to name the race car, but she's
Danica
irritated me.
Patrick?
She's irritating me these days. But
Yeah.
But back then, I was really excited about that too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you didn't see that.
Right,
And-
right. And I think, I don't know, part of it too, I was just thinking when Christine was bringing up the point about not feeling comfortable, I think we also separate kids very early between girl and boys
Yeah.
sports and
Yes.
who gets to play with who and at what age does the boy become more powerful than the girl that they
Yeah.
can no longer play together and
Sure.
things get super fragmented. And then I feel like the sports and when they're younger, the men just tend to get more of the priority and
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And then
All
the
the
women are
funding,
just kind
yeah.
of oh, okay, yeah, that's just little play.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a pipeline issue
Yeah.
too. So if I'm a little girl and I started playing basketball and then at 9 I get switched into a team that's just all girls and then it's not as serious or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, I might decide to go find some lip gloss and
Do
take a
something else.
ballet class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Where people take you more seriously.
Yeah.
And then it's harder to access sports later on if you haven't accessed them your whole life.
Right.
Because then you're well, now I have to learn all these rules, and people are making me. I'm in the stands trying to watch this game, and people are trying to ask me, "Oh, you a real fan? Prove it.
Right.
Do you know the stats for the?" I hate that.
That's why the network is so important. It's the visibility, and
Yeah.
there is an appetite for it. There is a market,
Yeah.
and it's people. Oh, why don't they watch women's sports because they're not televised?
Yeah, they're not
there's
they're quite literally not televised because
Right.
that costs money.
Yeah, because you go to women's soccer games and they're selling out.
Yes.
We just had the largest attendance record broken for a women's sport, and it was soccer, and there is an appetite for it. So if you start televising it,
Yeah.
people will watch, and you are only going to help build that culture to bring women and continue in the sport and not have them just fall off
Because people like competition and women
Yeah.
compete. That's
I
that's the
think-
whole nature of it.
Maybe on Whoopi, Whoopi can have a segment for people who are new to sports, and it can be okay, today we're gonna explain to you what a first down is. And this is how the downs work, because I saw something once that was if you don't understand a sport, it's just because a man hasn't explained it to you well. And I'm yeah, kind of, because if I haven't played a sport, I'm asking my husband, okay, well, what is this? Well, that's offsides. Well, why is it
Right, then
offside?
you're
Well,
irritated-
because the
you're
thing.
irritating him, right?
And I'm
Whoopi's
okay.
network is projected to reach 65 countries and 2 billion people. And, Christina, what you mentioned, it's really interesting, because then I also think, though, if you have a women's sports network and you get on there and you start explaining things, that's going to feed into the narrative of see, women need to know what's going on because they don't know.
Yeah, maybe they could put it somewhere else.
It's how do you
it's the YouTube exclusive.
explain it? Yeah.
I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with expectations. We have to get the expectation out that all women are just supposed to come on this earth and birth children and stay at home.
Yeah.
Because that's quite frankly, that's the issue.
That's
and you
the
have women
problem.
that believe and fall in that too, which is why you have aunties and grandmas and cousins be when are you about to have a baby, or when are you going to get married? All of these things,
Yeah.
why? No one's asking men those questions.
Yeah.
Or that you can't do multiple things well.
Right.
You
Right.
know, you're
Yeah.
either one or the other. You can't be a good mom and also a professional.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
we can't be multiple things. And like you said, those
Yeah.
conversations aren't happening with everyone.
Which is why I did
Right.
appreciate Flavor Flav. Do you remember with the Olympics when he
Yes.
sponsored
Oh, yeah.
the women's team because he
Yes.
thought it was ridiculous that these
Yeah.
women are going to the Olympics and they can't afford to only practice like every other person has to do.
Yeah.
And
They're working 3 jobs.
Right.
to-
They have to literally work and then go to practice, which is a full-time job. Being an athlete at that level is a full-time job, and these women are having multiple jobs on the side.
Yeah,
So
or
it's-
bringing their kids to the Olympics. I mean, there was, I can't remember who it was, but she, just in the last year, there was
it Felix? I can't remember.
Yeah,
the
nursing area.
Yes.
There wasn't a nursing area in some of these competitions, in the locker rooms, or,
Yeah.
they're having they have to try to find daycare for their kids. And I think that was just a thing that happened at the Olympics in the last year.
Which is so funny to me because people are like, how are people going to raise kids and they're working? And I was like, the same way men did it.
Yeah.
They were out working too.
Yeah.
And they seem to be just fine as dad. I mean, I don't know, everybody wouldn't say that. But, you would argue no one's questioning the role of a dad when they have to go out and work and do the things, the same thing that a woman has to do as well, right? Or like the opposite. I've seen men that are like caretaking for their kids and women are like side-eyeing them like,
Where's your wife?
Where's your
Yeah.
wife? Like, what?
It
Or
was
men are like side like, or they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, bro. You gotta, like, you good? Like, oh my God, I just said bro, like my kid.
It was it was Alice and Felix.
Felix, I knew.
I remember
Track
we
star.
talked about her too. But even Serena, I mean, I just keep going back to Serena, but even as she, when she decided to have a family, she put that out there. That was, is she still going to be able to play tennis? It's like, what? Yeah.
Which is so funny to me because I'm like, you've had women that were birthing like 12 kids and taking care of like whole like households.
In a field.
Like what?
So crazy.
And like,
to me.
like I just don't understand. It's like, in one notion is like women are so strong because they have these kids and they have to take care of kids. And then the other side is like, well, they're not really strong enough to work and have kids. It's like, because raising kids is pretty hard.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Requires a lot.
Yes.
There's that notion though that like the minute you have a kid that your life is over.
Oh
and
yeah.
that, like,
it's not, I'll tell you that.
And
Yeah, is
you know
that
what
scary? I mean, is
But
that scary to a
it
single
is.
person,
I think it is. I think it's there is that perception that then like, well, then you're expected to be a mom and then you can't do this or that. And it's not true, but I think that is something that like our society kind of like they were just saying like, oh, well, if she has a baby, then how can she play tennis? What do you mean?
They definitely don't make it
what
easy.
do you what do you
is that
mean?
something
Yeah.
you need a little explanation of?
Yeah,
like
you don't
little
actually
video.
use your genitals to play tennis.
Tennis,
So
right,
like,
exactly.
I don't understand why that would matter. But I do think that's something that's sort of like unspoken in society, that it's like this pressure of like, well,
But it's not. Oh, I mean, I think the other issue is like my kids don't run me. I make that very clear. And I think the notion is people think when you have kids that your kids run you.
Yeah.
Yes, there's schedules and things you have to take into consideration, but it's a learning experience for both of you. Like you have to also teach your kid like I need a break. Like I have to do work. I have to do this, and you have to be able to explain it to them. And I think we haven't come from an explaining world. As mothers to children, and so everyone then jumps on the bandwagon and they just think that like, well, whatever happens with their kid that comes first. And it's like, it's not that your kids don't come first, but it's also recognizing that there is a relationship where two things can exist at the same time, where my child also recognizes that I have to work and that they need to be, and as like a theater kid, my kid's always in the theater.
Yeah.
They know, and then they start working and start doing all the things or whatever. Like, you have to come to work with me, and they're hands-on.
We were free labor growing up.
Oh, yeah.
My mom had a flower basket shop growing up, so it was like, oh, this is great. You guys are coming to work after you finish school and do your homework and sports, then you're going to work.
Yeah, and
like,
I think that's what has to get out with, like, single, like, folks that, like, the whole notion of, like, oh, these kids are like, I won't have a life.
Yeah.
It's really... that's not.
Yeah.
Also, just the division of labor in the house needs to be, and it's slowly getting there, I think. But growing up for us, because my parents were both working, like there was just a division of labor, and there was no roles were gendered. So it was like my dad's gonna cook tonight, my mom will cook tonight. Like my dad will clean here, my mom will clean here, and then you boys, you're all doing this together. Like go help us. And growing up, though, we never had this idea that, oh, this is woman's work or this is man's work. It was like, no, this is work.
You're
so
a person
get your butt to work.
You need
But
to do
you
it.
know what? I say this, and this is totally going into a different episode, so maybe this is an episode we should bring up. But this idea of like conscious parenting, also could be very. It could be a little problematic because what you're talking about is discipline, and in a way that like some people may poo poo because it's like, well, we want your kid, like your kids should be like investigating and seeing the world. Like if they don't want to do that, then they shouldn't have to do it. And so like I think the notion now with parenting is
Gentle
also
parenting.
Gen Z parenting is different. different.
Like, yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's also out there too with like single
The look on my face
parents
right
of
now. I gotta
like,
fix my face.
oh
That's,
yeah,
I'm like,
oh yeah. There's a whole thing of like you shouldn't yell. Like, even like some schools are functioning in that space of like let your kid experiment and like be out, which is fine. But also to your point, like there has to be some type of there's a discipline and a rigor that has to happen as parents, because again, like
Yeah.
children don't run the household. But
Yeah.
it is kind of switching.
Naila, I'm going to be consulting you weekly now.
Oh, you got a toddler. That's different.
Well, hey, listen.
Toddlers
it's-
run the household.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
different.
As he gets older, I'm going to be like, help. Remember that village? It'll be like 3 or 4 years from now. I'm like, hey, remember me?
It's around that 5 and up
Yeah.
age. That's when we have to start to like regulate a little bit.
Yeah. So plans for the weekend besides running your kids around, Naila?
Running them around. Just relaxing, trying to I don't have too much this weekend, so just kind of relaxing a little bit after taking everybody where they gotta go.
Yeah, you just came off a busy streak.
Yes,
In
yeah.
the theater
So
world, so.
a little bit of a break.
Christina, you are not taking a break.
I'm not taking a break. No. I have rehearsal this weekend for Pippin at O'Connell and Company, which opens on the 21st. I'm playing the role of Catherine. Love her.
Yes,
Princess
love
Track.
it.
You see me in Act 2.
Great.
So fun. Really excited for this iteration of Pippin. Jatan is our leading player.
Oh yay! I'm
my
excited to
gosh.
see it.
Incredible.
And then where will we be able to see that? when
That
it comes
is
out?
going to be at O'Connell and Company, so at their Bailey Avenue location. And it runs through the weekends. We've got a whole bunch of 2-show days, so lots of opportunities to see me in that. Hopefully I'll be in a great wig. I don't know. We'll see. I
Can't wait.
Cross your
Little
fingers.
Dolly influence, maybe? No.
I would love a good wig. Whoever's listening. Yeah, so that's in rehearsals for that, and then starting rehearsals for my next thing in a couple weeks. So
Can you say what your next thing is, or is that just
I'm not allowed to
to
yet.
be
So you'll
di-
just have to bring me back on
Continue.
the chat,
Okay,
and
okay.
I'll share
Sounds
that in a
good.
couple
All right.
weeks. Yeah.
Pat, how about you?
True to form, I bought a broken down 90s mountain bike on Facebook Marketplace this week.
Oh, love it.
So I'm going to be resto-modding that this weekend.
Wait, what? What was?
Resto-mod.
Okay.
Restoration, modification.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah.
So putting new components on it and building it up.
Yeah.
There's kind of like a biking subculture called X-biking, where you
Yeah.
take old 90s mountain bikes and restore them. So I'm just getting a little nerdy and mechanical and
I
just
love it. I
love
building
that.
up a bike.
Are they heavier?
Yeah, they are,
Yeah.
but they're really durable, so you can like throw them around and go down a mountain.
Okay, I will not be mountain
That's
biking.
cool. Yeah, I know. I'm
Laying
like,
low like
ooh, gross,
Naila.
not for me.
It was like,
Yeah, I'm like, oh.
I just
I like
cleaned
the
Sounds like a lot of work.
mountains.
I cleaned my basement last weekend with my dad, and so now I have like a workbench area, and
Okay.
I'm like, okay, well, I have the workbench area, so now I should like use it.
Sure.
And, yeah, I found this thing on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm like, I have to buy this now.
All right, well, you'll have to
That's
let us know
cool.
how that goes or post pictures.
Yeah.
That wraps up today's episode of Group Chat for now. If you want to continue the conversation, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at WBFO News. Also, check us out on the video podcast on the Buffalo Toronto Public Media YouTube page. Protect my public media. If you love public media, if you love these discussions that aren't had anywhere else, then support it. It's very easy. Help protect it. Visit protectmypublicmedia.org to learn more and take action and just keep informed. I'd like to thank my guests, Dr. Naila Ansari-Catilo, Ashleigh Chrisena Ricci, and Pat Kelly. I'm your host, Bentley. Have a great weekend, and thanks for listening.